What is going on, Texas Longhorn football fans? It's your main man, Anwar Richardson. Geoff Ketchum will be here in a few minutes, so it will be me, which means I get a chance to talk. What is that like? Hey, before we even get started, everybody, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We will definitely talk about a lot of different things. We will talk about LHN. We will talk about everything in the spring game. Like I said, Catch is probably a good 3 to 5 minutes away. I am sitting here in DKR in a press box. As I'm looking over here, looks like they have had a lot of people that were on the field. Those people are kind of going off the field at this moment. A lot of super things and fun things that are going on. Make sure you leave your messages here in the chat so we can have a chance to talk about it. And then we'll get an opportunity to cover everything: offense, defense, special teams. But where do we even start from where we're at right now? And again, I think, all right, I'll start with where you guys want to start, and then we'll get into the game. LHN definitely did drop the ball. Like, let's just keep it real. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100. I don't know what went into the programming today, but we'll just get this out the way so that we can just move on. LHN did you guys a disservice. I was sitting there, and if you guys see some of the tweets, one of the tweets that I put out there was literally like a 2-minute time span of football that you guys missed while they were doing in-house ads, regular ads. I'm not quite sure what went into that. LHN has always been one of the kind of things that I know Texas fans have been a little bit upset about for many years, and rightfully so. And today, of all days, you had one job. And that job was to show Texas fans the entire spring game, and they did not do that. So I clearly, when Texas gets into the SEC, that will probably mean some sort of reshuffling, reworking for LHN. So I hear your frustrations. Hopefully, I can fill in some of the blanks of things that you guys did miss. And there is Geoff Ketchum, who has joined us for the show. But yes, Geoff, I just kind of started off talking a little bit about LHN before I got into what everybody else was talking about. So there was enough LHN comments where I was like, don't need to avoid this. Let's address this elephant in the room, get it out the way, so then we can talk about everything else.
You know, the thing about the Longhorn Network is it's like a high school kid in May, a senior. Like, they're skipping school and nobody – what are you going to do about it? Like, the thing about the Longhorn Network is you know that it's going to die over the course of the next couple of years once the Longhorns join the SEC. So when you see Abomination tonight, it basically means, you know, there's no reason to really get upset. Nothing's going to change. We did lose Anwar for just a second. He is going to be back. Anwar, I was just finishing up that metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Longhorn Network's going to die soon. And so there's not much point to overreacting to how big of an abomination it is. It missed half the scrimmage, but, you know, whatever. I mean, honestly, I don't know why we're past the point 12 years in of getting upset at the Longhorn Network. It just never worked out. And tonight was like one of the it was like an example of, oh yeah, we're never really gonna miss, you know, having the spring scrimmage completely interrupted. And Anwar, it was capped off with them cutting out of Sarkisian's post-game press conference, which was like, okay, well, at least we're going to get to see all of Sark in his media availability. Nope.
They just cut that off too as well?
They cut out in the middle of it. Yeah. So
it's almost like they're mailing it in at this point, Catch. Like, it is – I mean, you have one job. And that job is to show the franchise, and then fail at showing the franchise.
So let's just move on. I've said everything that I need to say about the Longhorn Network. You know, I wrote one of the reasons why I'm late is I was putting stuff on the front page and finishing up my post-scrimmage, post-spring game remarks. And I think it's just really important to not overreact to anything that we saw today. It just it wasn't. It was a practice, and I think the thing that really jumped out the most on War while watching it, while not overreacting, is this is still a pretty mediocre football team. It's not great at quarterback. It's not good on the offensive line. All those things that we know about the depth in the defense still kind of come into play. And I think the best thing that I would tell Texas fans today is you can see pieces of really elite level talent, certainly on the offensive side of the ball. And they've got 3+ months to get this thing kind of figured out, to get ready for the games when they arrive in September. But, I mean, if you walk away from today and you're drinking 10-2 Kool-Aid, 9-2 Kool-Aid, 9-3 Kool-Aid, and you're thinking about Big 12 championship game plans, this team's just not ready for that yet. And it wasn't ready for it 4 months ago when the season ended. And it hasn't just changed overnight. It's still – this is a program that's a work in progress. And I thought that more than anything else revealed itself over the course of, whatever tonight was.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though, Ketch. As you know, no matter what, first of all, there was 10-2 Kool-Aid being poured, and that's kind of one of the things I'm writing for Sunday. That Kool-Aid's already been poured, and just because it didn't taste that good today doesn't mean a week from now everyone's going to say, that Kool-Aid that I had on the spring game, that was actually really good, better than I thought. And so, no matter what, the reset button will get hit. So people will walk away looking for, the quote unquote confirmation bias and kind of go from there. The thing about the spring end, one of the things that Sarkisian talked about, it was vanilla. It was watered down. He talked about having, typically they ran a lot more and a lot more plays and a lot more things. And he goes, this was so basic within the game plan that there wasn't a lot to really derive from it, mainly just playing under the lights and seeing how people reacted, playing in front of maybe 40,000 people, more so than anything else. So, when we have our overreaction Monday, the topic that we won't be overreacting to is anything that happened today, just because we understand this is the format. It kind of is what it is. You look for those individual plays, and then there's obviously guys who had some splash moments. But again, I asked Sarkisian, and I don't know if you guys were able to hear what I asked him.
We did hear that.
Okay. Okay, so you were able to see that, one practice versus the totality and how they kind of weigh that whole situation. But yet to catch the Kool-Aid's already been poured. You can't put that thing back that genie back in the bottle. The expectations are high, and that just kind of is what it is.
I just don't think they are.
I've got proof and evidence on Sunday to show you differently.
You have proof and evidence for your column tomorrow, because every post that I'm seeing on Orangebloods.com right now is 7-5. It's in my reaction to my comments on my initial thoughts from the spring game. It's being discussed on a post by CS. I mean, I'm not seeing a lot of people saying that after tonight they need to go run and buy their Big 12 championship game tickets.
They were saying it beforehand. Catch, don't you think for a second that when you make your prediction in the fall and you say something like 7-5, 8-4, that you won't be shouted down from the rooftops and being told that you're absolutely insane. You've done this long enough to know.
Oh, I know that we'll eventually get there. I'm just saying I'm not sensing Kool-Aid being poured tonight.
I'm not saying anyone's. I'm saying the minimal. I'm saying the Kool-Aid was being poured heavily before tonight, and just because it didn't taste that good, don't mean that people aren't going to be going back to the well from a week from now. I'm just saying it's going to happen.
It's not a very good football team right now. Just full transparency. You can see at the quarterback position, if we start there, I thought Quinn Ewers, I thought looked about like you'd probably expect. a guy that in another universe is getting ready for his senior prom. I think you give that guy 4 seconds against the second team defense, he can throw a beautiful ball that Isaiah Neyor can catch. And like that was the moment of the spring game / scrimmage / whatever tonight was. It was easily the play everybody will remember. I don't know that there'll be a game he'll play in this season where he'll have that amount of time to set up and throw. And but you can see the skill level. You can also see a guy that was picked off by Anthony Cook in part because he never saw Cook's. You know, I thought the one thing the Longhorn Network did a really good job of in the scrimmage tonight, the one thing, they did a good job of reviewing that play and showing where Anthony Cook was pre-snap and where Cook basically didn't move a lot, like at all. He kind of stayed exactly where he was. Ewers never saw him, and it was a ball that he threw into traffic, and that's going to happen too. And I thought that, you know, I thought Quinn Ewers looked about like what I think I would have expected. I think I was a little disappointed in Hudson Card because while there were moments where I thought he showed his arm talent as well, I thought there were moments when we saw him in the face of pressure, and he's still not calm in the face of pressure. He's still a little happy feet. They get to chop it, and you can see that you can see the nervousness when the pressure's coming. And considering that's the one big question mark facing Hudson going into this season is his ability to kind of get comfortable in the face of that pressure. I thought that was a little disappointing. Again, nothing to overreact to, but this was a snapshot in the middle of their preparation between first practice and 33rd or 34th practice that'll take place going into the season opener. And, you know, both of these guys still got to get – neither of these guys is all Big 12 ready-made yet. The good news is they're not even at the midway point in their preparation time. And so, you know, let's see what these guys look like in August. But, you know, national championship / Big 12 champions aren't made necessarily in April. And – you know, I just think that this is a team that still has a lot of work. It needs to count on a lot of guys showing up. They need help from this freshman class that hasn't arrived yet. They need do I have any sunburn today? The thing is, I went to a softball tournament, and so, you know, I'm going to probably look sunburned today, having watched a bunch of softball. I think this was a team screaming out for O'Shawn Mathis on the defensive side of the ball. Again, it's not the first time we've said that during the spring, but, you know, I think there are this team, to me, I think we know what it is. It's an immensely talented team with the skill position players. I thought the running backs looked really good today. Roschon Johsnon really is turning into quite the football player. You know, when he moved Anwar from quarterback to running back, that wasn't a move that a lot of people were clamoring for in real time. I think that a lot of people wanted to see him stay at quarterback a little longer and see kind of how that went. And I think a lot of people felt like, oh, God, you're moving him to running back. Is that even going to work? I mean, he's really good. And in a world where there's no Bijan Robinson in the program, you know, Roschon would be maybe the star along with obviously Xavier Worthy in the entire program. You know, I thought Robinson in small doses flashed today, Jonathan Brooks as well. They're loaded at running back. They've got good receivers. Jatavian Sanders looks like a handful at tight end. It's the rest of the team that we just don't really know a lot about yet. And tonight is not going to answer anything one way or the other. It's a team with question marks.
The thing is, even with Jatavian, though, he did get stripped by Jaron Thompson down by the goal line. So great play by Jaron Thompson.
Yeah.
And that, that's one of those like the, typical young person fighting for extra yards, trying to get score something. And then the ball security, which, definitely be a learning lesson for him. Like I said, it's, tough on him. It's like the flip side is, always with these games, like look at one person and go, oh, but then you have to say the other side, like, well, on the flip side, Jared Thompson played well. So it's one of those offense looks good, but then the defense played well. So
on that Roshan Johnson touchdown run.
Who did he run over? Who did he run over on that run? Yeah. So that was
zero-sum game when you're playing against your own teammates.
Yeah, he was Roschon, when you take, like you said, when you take a look at that backfield, first of all, Roschon plays like a guy that has an NFL future. Whether that's a late round pick or undrafted free agent, but he's a guy that, former quarterback, clearly smart, knows where he needs to be at all times, tough runner, ball security, like all the things that you want. Keelan's always good for like that change of pace, back. And like you even said, Jonathan Brooks has looked good. And, he's still got Jaden Blue, who's, just a freshman. So, from that running back position, that running back room, it's one of those things that you feel like, okay, if Bijan is dinged and has to come out for a series, you don't look at it and go, boy, these boys are in trouble. You go say, all right, maybe a different style runner, but Roschon is definitely, going to be effective. And, like you said, there was, I think Sarkisian said Xavier Worthy was on a pitch count. But you did see some things from Xavier. You saw some stuff from Jordan Whittington, as well. So,
how about Maurice Blackwell just smoking Xavier Worthy along the sideline? It made me think, like, that's why I didn't want that dude playing in this game in the first place.
Yeah, that was like, I'm going to finish this, and it's like, oh, okay, that's all right. This is what we're doing. You're playing a real game. You view this as a real game. But for the offensive weapons, and then to the point about Quinn, and back to the stuff you said about the quarterbacks. The good part about Quinn is, the arm strength is there. It's effortless. Being able to get the ball down the field in, quickly. There's not a catch. It's not hanging, forever, and allowing DBs to make tons of plays on it. Like to your point, like Anthony Cook made a play, but that was just because he didn't see him, at that time. But then there's other things that'll have to get cleaned up. Some of the overthrows and that happen just because of the arm strength. But you see it there. Hudson. The thing with Hudson catch. Just going back to what a little bit earlier. You would like for him to be in a position where, in year 3, it's just he's clear and far ahead of where a redshirt freshman will be, but that's just not the case. And so when that's kind of thing where, even though Sarkisian said the quarterback competition, which you didn't get to hear at the end, will continue. It's one of those things that if it's even like this point, and even with the young person, then more than likely where it's more than likely headed when it's all said and done, and that's probably to Quinn at being number 3. Not number 3 quarterback, by the way. I'm talking about the number 3 that he's wearing.
It's hard for me after tonight to think that it would be Hudson. Hudson still, I don't know, there's a moment when a guy just gets comfortable, and Hudson's not there yet. And what's weird about Ewers, I don't know that we know about him yet either, right? Because he's never really faced it. We've seen Hudson face it and fail. And I think it makes some of his twitchiness in the pocket, his loud feet, I think it makes it stand out more because we're looking for that. We haven't seen Quinn Ewers' confidence shaken yet. And who knows, maybe that'll never happen. Maybe he's so good that he just gets to skip that class in school. But this, the real world suggests that there will be a moment when he gets his confidence shaken, or at least is given a reason to feel that way. And then how he responds from that is when we really learn about the real Quinn Ewers. And it's so hard to talk about this team knowing that one quarterback's just not ready yet. I think we can see it. And who knows, maybe it just takes a moment for the light switch to come on, but it hasn't happened yet. And the other guy, we just haven't seen in a real pressure situation yet. And after going, gaga over Hudson Card a year ago when he hadn't yet had the pressure moment, I'm finding myself just being a little more careful this year with regards to going too crazy with the quarterback predictions, knowing that, there's some hard.
Wait, stop.
What?
Mrs. Mathis is in the chat.
Oh yeah? Oh God. Well, I'll say the same thing I said earlier. Hey, let me tell you what my number 20 point and my 20 thoughts on the final spring practice were. That's good to hear. Roschon had a wonderful visit. The very last thing that I wrote in my reaction column today, number 20, Roschon Mathis, come on down. You're needed. Yeah.
She's here, which is amazing. She's here. It was at the game. They're on their official visit. So it is kind of funny that shouldn't the staff be taking them out to dinner right now, Ketch? Like, shouldn't they be getting ready to go to like VYs or something? Or is this
weird? These official visits during the spring are still so new to me that I guess it's a little bit like a real game, and so most of the stuff tomorrow morning, maybe they go to Sark's house for breakfast. Because remember, like that's a thing. You go on the final day, maybe you go to the head coach's house. You go to the crib, and they have a nice spread. But after an event like this, there's so much stuff going on. Probably assistant coaches, yes. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they're still in Austin. Well, of course, you're still here. But yeah, so
we don't doubt that you're in Austin. We're trying to figure out like what steakhouse they take you to on a Saturday night after the spring game. That's what we haven't quite figured out.
Yes, but we're glad to hear that. It went.
Now it begins the begging.
There is. She's so amazing. I mean, because there really is. It's like when she's here, it's almost like we have to take a back seat. Like there ain't nothing we can say. We can speculate, and clearly, let's keep it 100. Having Roschon Mathis here on campus third time is huge, right, Ketch? I mean, this definitely means a lot. I saw him on the sidelines flexing it, taking some pictures. Nice fit, nice outfit, beautiful family. By the way, and that to me, Ketch, one of the things I wrote last week would be one of the bigger victories of the spring game is that if at the end of the day, somehow this whole weekend leads to Roschon Mathis committing, because let's be honest, like they can definitely use some help on the pass rushing. I thought Ovi played well, Ketch, but like they need a pass rusher like him.
I thought the same thing with Calvin Anderson. Came back and was able to play his final year at Texas. It has to be an amazing thing for a kid from Maynard, Texas, who was overlooked in the recruiting process, didn't have an offer from the hometown school. As a matter of fact, I'm looking in the Rivals database, and other than TCU, I don't know that any other in-state school offered. So to be in this position where he gets to kind of do it all over again, and look, gets to go to UT on an official visit and be a guy that matters. I would imagine it has to be an amazing feeling. And in the history of the program, I can only think of two other guys from Maynard High School that have ever gone to the University of Texas. And obviously the most famous one was a 5-star linebacker from a few years ago that didn't pan out. So that's a high school that has long been, I think, overlooked. Even though its proximity to UT is so close. Whether he goes to Texas or he goes to Nebraska, when it's all said and done, this weekend has to be really cool for Roschon Mathis and his family to be in this position where they get to, it'd be like missing your prom as a senior, and then they have another prom. You go to that, and in this prom, you're the king and the queen of the prom at the same time. It's got to be pretty cool,
Yeah.
Not many people in life get a do-over in that type of situation. And since you've been here the last 8 years, Calvin Anderson is like a rare exception of a guy that ends up in that position. And Roschon Mathis, another one, a guy from this area that gets a chance potentially to rewrite the script on what otherwise could have been a different story.
Yeah, it's really I can't imagine what it's like you said, Ketch, to kind of maybe being overlooked, coming out of high school and feeling like, hey, I'm good enough to play at a University of Texas, and then not really getting the opportunity and say, okay, I'm going to make the best out of TCU, and then go there, not pout about it, Ketch, not be bitter or anything to that effect, and just say, all right, I'm just going to go here and ball and do the best that I can, and then put yourself in a situation where, not only do you ball out, you graduate, and then you got the same people wanting you again. It's almost like catching, I know your analogy, to me, it's almost like kind of being like the nerd in high school who doesn't get a chance to go on a date with the cheerleaders. And then a few years later, you get into the weight room. You start looking good. All of a sudden, you start wearing different clothes. You go to someone, you start doing your hair. And all of a sudden, a few years later, you run into that same person on 6th Street down in the club or Domain or something like that. And they're like, man, you look good. You're like, you want to go out? Yeah, she's handing you the number. That's what it's got to feel like. It's got to feel like, man, I have reinvented myself, and everyone wants me.
That when he signed with TCU, the thought process that day had to be, one day you guys are going to regret not coming for us. But you never would think that probably the day that he signed that yes, they would regret it, but they'll also have an opportunity because of these new rules to make right that thing that wasn't. And again, I thought I agree with you. I think Ovio Gofu is one of the more underrated players on the Texas defense. I wrote that in my column that I posted just within the hour over at orangebloods.com as soon as the spring game scrimmage ended. But I also don't know what that means, right? What does it mean to be underrated right now on this Texas defense that I don't know what it is either. It's one thing to be underrated and you're on the 1991 Miami Hurricanes, and it's another to be underrated on a defense that ranked 100th a year ago in, I guess, yards per game and 99th in scoring defense. At some point you want to be rated and not underrated. And I wonder if there's just still not enough guys on this defense that are rated. But that's what Roschon Mathis, I think, gives you as a legitimate made guy in the Big 12. A guy that's been a legit pass rusher, a guy that's been a plus player on a good team. And Texas doesn't have enough of those. And I think that, it goes without saying that the moment he picks Texas, if he does, and then he shows up in the summertime, he immediately upgrades a position that really needs upgrading.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Because now all of a sudden, when you put him in there, then you, like you said, you still got your, OV, but then maybe a Justice Finkley, who's had a really great spring. He's not the person that you look at and say, okay, we need you to come in. We need you. You could say, we will love the contributions that you give us, but it's not like you need him. At this moment, without Roschon, they need Justice Finkley. And so you want to be able to have that luxury of him coming off the bench, coming in rotationally. And then if Roschon decides okay, I feel comfortable, I'm ready to pull the trigger, Catch, a lot of this thing for me a lot of the spring for me, Catch, is really about this team setting it up for the fall. Like, I feel like everything has been about the offensive line needing people and having the bodies for the fall, right? Oshon Mathis being recruited, so a guy that you have here for the fall. We talked about Ajay Hall, being a guy that's going to come in in the fall. The defensive linemen who are going to come in and add some depth in the fall. I feel like everything that Sarkisian has done, he's trying to grow and develop the guys that he has clearly, but the team almost looks different because you have guys who have impact. Even Sarkisian talked about it, Catch afterwards. And again, I don't know if you heard it, but he said like they're going to have guys who are going to come in the fall and they're going to be expected to contribute right away. And so everything for me is like what we saw the product today is one thing, but what we see in the fall is going to be totally different. And having a guy like you said, Oshon, if he comes and decides to come, which seems to be trending in the right direction, that's for sure. I think it definitely says a lot for the recruiting thing and potential impact that he can have.
Mom, just so you know, if you're still out there, showing up in the Orangebloods post-game scrimmage
so
during
awesome.
The official visit. It's not a great poker face. If we were in a hand with you, we would get the heck out the moment you put some money in the pot, assuming that you have got the hand. Someone asked the question. This is why this is a really important thing. I am not in control of the captions tonight because I came in late. But somebody asked earlier, if not Oshon Mathis, who is Texas looking at? That's the thing. There is nobody else. There's nobody else in the portal right now. And look, maybe, yes, here it was right here. If you don't get Mathis, who you're going after, what position on the defense? This is edge rusher. This is maybe the most important position in the entire defense. And, this isn't like, there's nobody else because the Texas coaching staff is putting all of their eggs in Oshon Mathis' basket. And there really isn't anybody else. The portal has dried up to a certain extent. And, we may see is that the portal gets a bump in talent in the coming weeks when post-spring games, and we've already started to see it a little bit this week. There's a freshman All-American linebacker who went into the portal this week from Arizona State. There will be some guys that do enter the portal, but just like that guy that entered the portal from Arizona State at linebacker, and everybody's wondering, Texas get in on him? Like, he's at USC this weekend. I mean, just because they enter the portal doesn't mean they're automatically going to your school, whatever that might be. And so Texas is in a position right now where I'm not telling you that Oshon Mathis is the only guy between now and July 1st that might become available. I'm just telling you he might be. I can't tell you with certainty that there's no one else, but at the moment there's no one else. And there's probably a pretty strong likelihood that a guy that's regarded as one of the top portal players, period, this year in college football in Oshon Mathis, I don't know that you are going to get somebody quite on that level. You might at that point Anwar have to dip into what Texas has tried to do at the linebacker position when you saw them go after Caleb Johnson. And it was like, is that guy really good enough to make this defense definitely better? I mean, beggars can't be choosy when you need depth at linebacker, and the depth has started to run out, and suddenly you're making a run at a Caleb Johnson, and it's like, well, it ain't like there's a bunch of dudes behind Caleb Johnson either. I mean, we've just reached the point where it's pretty slim pickings.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, by the way,
Did you get kicked out?
I wasn't quite sure. I mean, there's definitely some activity going on, but I think they actually wanted to make sure like it wasn't going to be like, disturbing and things to that effect. But there's people here who literally have to put things together, shut things down.
Like, I'm not getting home at midnight because of you.
Yeah, so I'm like, dude, do you like if you got to kick me out, I can find a hall, but the last thing I want to do is be the person that you're sitting there like, I can't see my family tonight because Anwar's in the press box talking to Ketch. Like, if it needs to go down, like, I'll move.
Some kid falls asleep tonight on a couch wanting to be with their mom and dad. And it's like, I tried to stay up for you, but you came home so late. Anwar Richardson of Orangebloods.
No, I don't want that smoke. Yeah, I don't want that smoke. So I'm actually going to go out and I'm going to ask them, do they need to come in this room to do anything? Because I'm going to give them the full go-ahead, like, do what you need to do. So just give me 1 second, okay?
Yeah, you bet. While Anwar's doing that, I'll go through some positions of guys that I thought stood out a little bit tonight, kind of position by position. You know, we mentioned the running backs earlier, and when Anwar gets back, actually, he's coming back, so maybe I'll hold that thought. I will hold that thought while Anwar puts his headset back on. Anwar.
Yes.
So what I was going to do while, I don't want to say put a ribbon and bow on this thing, but knowing that we don't have potentially a ton of time left where you're in that spot, let's just position by position.
Okay.
Player or little things that might have stood out tonight.
Okay.
We talked about the quarterbacks. Let's go running backs. Anything besides Roschon catch your eye tonight?
Just a depth catch that they have at that position, just knowing that, like I said, past Roschon, knowing that they got Keelan, knowing that they got Jonathan Brooks, who I thought ran pretty well. Just knowing that they have some depth there is really solid. It definitely speaks to really, what won't be the biggest story of the offseason, but Tashard Choice coming in and not being, you got to think, Catch. This program has had Stan Drayton as its running backs coach for like how many years, Catch? Was it like the last 4 or so that Stan's been here? Actually, maybe 5, because he was here for all of Tom's tenure, so the 4 years, and then 1 year with Sark. So, like the last 5 years, Stan has been the guy. So having the transition and having Tashard Choice come in and being able to not have a drop off and have those guys still look good, I think speaks volumes to one, the recruiting there, but also the coaching as well.
Yeah, I think that weirdly, Bijan could get hurt, and you'd be okay. You'd be more than okay at running back. They have that. They have arguably the best running back in the country, but they have so much depth at that position that if he missed a game or two during the season for whatever reason, you'd feel like, okay, well, insert Roschon, insert Keelan Rotten. But suddenly all these guys that we say things about, God, you wish these guys could get 4 or 5 touches a game just to see what a guy like Robinson's speed could provide. That's what a Bijan injury would mean, is all these other guys that we sometimes sit around and wonder, could they ever get more touches? All it means is they'd finally get the touches that we sometimes wonder about them getting. It's a really deep room.
Yeah, but we saw it last year too, Catch, when Bijan was hurt towards the end of the year and how Roschon stepped up.
Yeah, and I don't know that you could have more confidence in a backup right now as much as I think Texas fans and coaches have with Roschon Johsnon right now, running back.
No, you guys are right. Do you think? Hey, we were joking. It was like, I don't want to be the reason why none of you guys see your kids tonight, so do whatever you need to do. Do you guys got to kick me out? Let me know.
Although it is 9:21, if your kids are that young, they should be in bed. I thought Isaiah Neyor had a coming out party tonight. If you're talking about wide receivers, other than Xavier Worthy kind of just being X, I thought tonight you saw, Isaiah Nayor. And, I thought maybe the play that was my favorite play of his tonight was his first catch. It wasn't anything more than maybe like a 10-yard gain, but he caught a short pass, and then one quick burst of explosion, one step inside, and he's past the DB and to that second level. And it was like, I have not seen a boundary player at the Texas wide receiver position do that outside of Xavier. Between him and Jordan Whittington, who I thought in small doses flashed, those two guys to me look like guys that have to be on the field with Xavier Worthy. And with all due respect to any other receiver on the roster, Nayor caught my eye a lot. Whittington caught my eye a medium-sized amount, and I already have a lot of confidence in him. And then I kind of go back to Isaiah Nayor at that point.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting, Ketchum, to kind of build off of that, if I'm a Jai Hall and I watch this at home, I didn't look at that and say, ooh, yeah, I'm in trouble, boy. I don't know how I'm going to get on the field. Like, to your point, Xavier did what he did. Nayor, had the flash, but if you're a Jai, you don't look at that and say, man, I can't come in the fall and compete for playing time. No disrespect to any of those guys. But we didn't see somebody else just have like an amazing game where you're like, woo. You just saw Jordan did what he does. So I think the good part if you're Texas is that, like, to your point, Catch, those certain guys did look good. But then it'll be very interesting to see when Najai gets here because there aren't a lot of people standing in his way at this moment.
The tight end position, real quick, tight ends. Jatavian Sanders in a very small, short amount, right? Like his best play ends up with him fumbling, but what a rope he caught, and what a threat he can be in the red. If nothing else, that guy in the red zone this year could be really dangerous. We didn't really see a lot from Gunnar Helm. I came out of tonight wondering if Jaleel Billingsley is going to have a big impact on this team at all, because there are only so many balls to go around and get in line. I mean, basically. So that was kind of it from the tight end position. It was like, feed me a little more Jatavian Sanders. I didn't really get to see a lot of Gunnar Helm. And like I said, I looked at Jaleel Billingsley and I was like, I don't mean to be unfair to Jaleel. But again, he's just in an offense where there's a lot of mouths to feed. And if we're trying to figure out how a Jai Hall is going to catch 25 passes this year, I think I'm really finding myself wondering that about Jaleel Billingsley.
Yeah, I mean, we Jatavian Sanders is kind of growing in his own, and good teachable learning moment as far as ball security is concerned. And again, you get Jaron Thompson all the credit in the world for getting in there and getting that strip. But yeah, like that's one of those things. Like you see the emergence of it, and so you had talked about Jatavian being a guy that so many people have been wondering about, like 5-star, why is he not playing? And then all of a sudden, you start seeing the emergence and development. So Sarkisian, really has praised Jatavian and Gunnar Helm, for what they've been able to do this spring. Like those are the two names that he really mentioned the most. And so, Jaleel definitely has a battle, on his hands. He will definitely need to do a little bit more in an off season and then of course in the fall. But this when it comes to the tight end room, it's really been the offseason story. Catch has been about the emergence of Jatavian. And like you said, seeing little flashes of it, Catch, if he doesn't fumble that ball, he might have dragged 3 people into the end zone. Like he was pretty close.
He was going to get stopped at like the 2. He was.
But those guys were hanging on for dear life, though, Catch.
They had stopped his momentum, though. Believe me, Anwar, when he was at the 5, I thought, oh, he's about to house this, and this is going to be, along with the deep ball to Isaiah Nayor, we're going to come away from this play. I had about 5 thoughts in about 2 seconds. But they legitimately stuffed his progress. And then, again, credit to the safety, Jaron Thompson, for ripping that ball out. And in a game, that was as good of as scoring a touchdown if you're Jaron Thompson, because if he doesn't do that, then the ball's just at the 2. And in a game, you favor the offense to be able to push the ball in, and that's 7 points. So the single biggest play made by the defense tonight, which really was like a 7-point play in a game situation, was the Jaron Thompson play. So full-on kudos to Thompson, because he probably won't get enough credit for that play, but it really was a bit. In a game, we'd be going crazy over how he stole 7 points off the scoreboard from the other team.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with you on that catch.
Real quick, Brandon Harris, who I think I've seen tweet like at one point like 19 eyeball emojis, did tweet hashtag Sark after dark with an eyes emoji. A lot of speculation that DeSoto running back Trey Wisner, who's formerly of Waco Conley and a borderline national top 100 recruit. There's a lot of speculation that he'd be a guy to keep an eye on right now with this whole Sark after dark. That's just me talking out loud. We'll see what happens. But there are signs that Texas will come out of tonight with a commitment. And there's some scuttlebutt behind the scenes that it could be Trey Wisner. We're tracking that down. But that would be a really good pickup. Again, borderline national time. I think he's 110 nationally right now in the Rivals rankings. He's a really good player. Anwar, offensive line. Anything? Any thoughts at all?
I think it. They are what we thought they were. Just there's a struggle bus that's going on right there, and it just is going to be something that you're just going to have to hope that they bring in some guys, and because there were definitely times that if they could have counted sacks, I mean, there was definitely some sacks that were there just because of the lack of protection, especially along the edge. And I don't want to go too deep in calling guys out by name, but especially on the edge, it was definitely tough. We saw, I know we'll talk about the defensive line and guys like Morrow getting in there and Ovi, but yeah, there's not much to say. You just got to hope they've got to hope that they can hit on 2 offensive linemen that are freshmen that can come in and have an impact. That's what they've got to hope for.
First of all, we come in knowing that the backups along the offensive line have been holding the offense on the second team offense back a little bit. Like, it is what it is. They don't even have a full fivesome of scholarship players. So, you don't want to go too crazy, but I found myself, whether it was Quinn or Hudson, whoever was it behind the first team offensive line, you just felt like, oh, this is a waste of time.
Yeah.
And it was for the most part. It wasn't like the second team offense got its, 8 at really any point during the scrimmage. I mean, they need help.
George be nice. Does that Randy be nice? Jeez.
Help is on the way. Yeah. And I think that, it's at TBA. I mean, really, we don't know what the first 5 is going to look like. I think at the end of August, really and truly, I think we can guess. I think the biggest loser in spring football is Andre Carrick. I think him missing the second half, the whole second half of spring football. I think that's an unfortunate. This was a camp where Texas, I think, got really lucky on the injury front. But one of the only injuries that really occurred during the spring that impacted the lineup was Carrick at left tackle. Whereas the last 7 or 8 practices could have been him asserting himself a little bit. In the end, he doesn't get any of those reps. And the next time he's in pads again, these freshman offensive linemen are going to be there. And I wonder if there was a little bit of a lost opportunity there that may be my single biggest offensive. I'm going to write about it actually in my 10 thoughts from the weekend. If there's a loser in all of the spring workouts, it might have been Carrick, who was getting all of the reps really at left tackle. They moved Christian Jones over to right tackle, and they basically told Carrick for the rest of the spring, big dog, we ain't got nobody else. It's kind of you, or we're going to have to move somebody from inside outside. He got hurt, and that's exactly what had to happen. And I don't know that when all these guys come back in August, it's going to be as simple as, well, hey, Andre, go back out there and you get all the reps with the ones at left tackle. Kelvin Banks and some others may have something to say about that. And I don't know that there's anybody else on the entire team that I completely feel that way about. And just in terms of, was there a loser in spring camp? And there weren't really a whole lot of those guys. Carrick's injury just makes for a really unfortunate situation for him, because this was an opportunity for him to kind of put a flag down, and he didn't really get a chance to do that.
Yeah, I mean, catch the last thing I said on the offensive line is the good news is that help is on the way. The bad news is you're going to have to wait for help, because, now if you're saying you have to wait until summer/fall to get this, find your starting five and then get that chemistry for them to gel together, and they're going to have to do it in real time. That's probably the scariest part of it. So the good news is there will be help. And like you said, Carrick, he gets healthy, he'll be back in the mix. But the bad news is there won't be a long period of time for these guys to work together and improve from a unit that definitely needs some improvement from last season. They just unfortunately are not going to have enough time to do what needs to be done.
Our producer Blake just dropped a note in the chat that Baron Sorrell's dad is in the chat. And I got to say, now that we're moving to the defensive line, he looks good. Like, he looks good in his off the hoof in his uniform. Like I saw him today, because I haven't had a chance to see these guys this spring. So this is my first chance to see them. And when I saw Sorrell with the second team defense today, I was like, oh, he looks good. I thought Sorrell was part of a number of guys on the defensive line that I thought played pretty well tonight. Anwar, I'm going to ask you this. This is where the Longhorn Network and its coverage might have screwed some stuff up for some of us at home. Because there were times when the offense got the ball and we didn't see a single play from a drive.
Oh, so bad.
We would come back and you would be telling us in Slack, like, you guys just missed an whole series. So can you tell me the defensive lineman that you thought looked good? Because I don't know that the Longhorn Network did us solid in giving us a proper portrayal of like why drives were getting stopped and that type of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of they definitely did you guys such a disservice. Did you see my tweet? Did you see my tweet?
Yes.
Yeah, when it was like literally 2 minutes of just commercial. I'm watching commercial.
You mentioned Moro Ajomo earlier, and as when you mentioned his name, I was like, "Yeah, I don't remember Moro Ajomo."
Yes. So like the guys, like Barrett, I thought he looked really good. I thought Moro, there was a couple of times he came off the edge. I thought he looked, very good as well. Those two guys that kind of stuck out. Again, Ovi, I thought had some really good plays. I think he would have been credited for about 2 sacks catch if that had been.
There was one jailbreak that he was in the middle of, but honestly, there were like 4 dudes near the quarterback. I didn't know. I wasn't quite sure how to officially like say who got. I know what play you're talking about though. Ovi did have his nose in some things. That was one of the rare plays the Longhorn Network did show us.
Yeah, and then if you guys had a chance, I thought Aaron Bryant looked good at times as well. You may not have seen it.
He got in the backfield. I saw that.
But I thought Aaron Bryant was really, really solid. I'm just kind of going through my notes. I do remember seeing DJ Harris in there. I think he was, late. I think right before Jatavian's, after
I think we missed that.
Yeah. And here's the bad part is you can watch a replay, but I'm not quite sure they're going to fill in the blanks for you. I think you still might be screwed even if you do watch the replay. But those are the guys that kind of, stood out, the most for me. Didn't really notice a lot of Keandre today. I got to go back and look at it, and maybe I missed a couple of things. But those are some of the guys who stood out on the defensive line to me.
They weren't getting gashed in the running game in the middle, really, other than the one play where Roschon took it to the house against the second team defense. and ran through ultimately a true freshman DB on his way to the end zone. I thought the run defense did a good job today. And I say that getting ready to move on to the linebacker position, where I don't really remember any of the linebackers.
I don't either.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
I know they had to be at least pretty good because it wasn't like the first team defense was just getting exposed. That's not what was happening. I can't remember hearing Overshown's name or Jalen Ford's name. I kind of remember seeing David Benda a couple of times, but I can't remember if that's because he made a play or if he was just around the play. But, it was this – when we talk about this defense needing playmakers, it kind of goes along the line of, they played pretty well, but I can't remember them full. We can remember the Jaron Thompson play, right? That was a big play.
Yes.
There just weren't a ton of those from the linebacker position. Whereas to the secondary's credit, you've got the Thompson strip, you've got the Cook interception, you've got the big hit by Maurice Blackwell along the sidelines. There were moments where I thought some of the secondary guys looked pretty good. And, to Deshaun Jameson and Ryan Watts' credit, I don't remember them really getting postered at any point. I thought in the end you could remember much more about the secondary, whereas it did really feel like the linebackers were just pretty quiet again.
To your point, and I think, there was also a really good breakup by Xavier Johnson as I'm looking through my notes on a pass from Hudson Card. We definitely saw that. And then, like I said, even I'm looking here, there was here's a good linebacker play. I'm going through my notes, Catch. There was a stop by Jet Bush on a play on Keelan Robinson. He asked for something.
No, you're right. I know what play you're talking about. You're right.
Yes, Jet Bush. There was a stop. He stopped Keelan Robinson, and Keaton Crawford came in and finished it off. So if you there was one. If we could, as far as a standout player.
It's really not fair to Jet Bush that I have not even we, because you took the note, so I can't throw that. I have just rendered him as a player that doesn't count in this conference. If he's still at edge, he's a player that is in the rotation. At linebacker, yet it just hasn't flipped into my brain that he's a guy that potentially is on the field and playing. But you're right. He had probably the best play at the linebacker position tonight, and it's not fair that I completely forgot about him.
Look at Kermit Wade's comment to you, Catch, the third from the top on the right.
I can't see any of the comments.
Oh, you can't? He goes, Mike, can you put that on the screen, Catch, so he can see it?
Yeah, I can only see the featured message.
Oh, okay. Well, Kermit is, and I don't know where Rockman went. All right. Well, anyway, so Kermit says, he goes, there you go, Catch.
Hey, at least Anwar took that note in his notes.
I took a note.
I did not include any real linebacker discussion in my notes.
Kermit's so wrong.
Anything else in the secondary?
No, that was kind of it, Catch. It was those are the big plays that they made. Now, obviously, Catch, on the flip side of it, we did see the receivers get loose a little bit. So because we saw Xavier Worthy score a couple of times, we saw Neyor
always against the twos.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's fair. So yeah, so if we factor that in, then the DBs were solid as far as that's concerned. Sure.
What did you think about Bert Auburn, who interesting night at place kicker? Right as I was about to pat him on the head and say maybe everything's going to be okay, and maybe the most pressurized kick he had to take, man, he shanked that ball. I mean, he kicked it wide right by a lot. And it was a reminder, whatever the kicking game's going to be, certainly maybe the punting's going to be fine. Maybe we'll see that that's going to be just okay. But boy, at place kicker, we'll be at a point where if they go into the Alabama game and need a kick, I have no idea what the hell I should expect, let alone what to expect.
Yeah, this is one of those things when it's on special teams where you don't realize how much you need it until it's not there. It's kind of like Texas fans have been fortunate to go from, like, for instance, from a punting perspective, from Michael Dixon to Cameron Dicker, right? So you had like several years where from a punting perspective, you were okay. And then you had Cameron Dicker for, was he been kicking for like the last 4 years, Catch?
Yeah.
So you had Cameron Dicker for like a 4-year starter, and now you're starting over at both positions. It's one of those things that you can't take that lightly. Like, you cannot take that lightly. Like, and I've always tell you, Catch, I always feel like kickers are 50-50 in college from any distance. You name a distance, I don't give a damn. It's an extra point. I feel like it's 50-50. I always pay attention. I don't ever look away, even if it's you know what taught me never to look away from an extra point in college? That Texas Cal game.
I knew you were going to say that. Why are you going to bring that up at 9:43 on a Saturday night in 2022?
No.
People didn't need that. They didn't deserve that.
No. The whole season was bad. But I'm just telling you that taught me don't look away. Don't look away. Don't take anything for granted. This is going to be one of those years, especially if points are going to be at a premium. You got to make that decision. Like, sorry, what you don't want, Catch, is Sark to be in that position where it's like 4th and 6 and they're on like the 30-something yard line, 35, and he's like 35 or so.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I gotta go for it because, man, I don't know what to expect. Like that. So yeah, it was definitely sketch. It was definitely iffy. And then from a punting perspective, I Catch when I've been in practice, it's kind, I've seen Pearson make some really good punts. And then there was a couple of times but it felt like he had to warm up. So it'll be very interesting to see how those guys perform in the fall, and really in games this season.
The most interesting, another little bright moment in the Longhorn Network coverage on a night when Texas fans will curse the Longhorn Network quite a bit. They did an interview with Cameron Dicker.
Mm-hmm.
And
did it cut away?
No.
Okay.
They asked him to give a scouting report on Auburn and Isaac Pearson. Mm-hmm. And Dicker totally avoided the question other than to say, yeah, man, it'll be interesting to see those guys this year.
That's all he said?
If they win the job, it was very much hey, I might be reading too much into it. He was asked to give a scouting report on both of the two guys that we were watching tonight, and he declined to give a scouting position of either player, and just said, "Yeah, it'll be interesting to see them this year." Like, it was very much I thought, an unintentional non-vote of confidence. Mm-hmm. And at the time, everything that I'd seen Auburn kick was pretty good. Like, he made most of the kicks that he came out to take. I can't tell you he made all of them because Lord knows he could have missed 5 and the Longhorn Network didn't show them. But of what the Longhorn Network showed, I thought he'd had a pretty decent night. But he made those comments before the last field goal. And then I was like, oh. That's why Dicker didn't come in and say, oh, wait till you guys see Auburn, or he didn't do that. He didn't hype up his boys, I guess, is what I'm ultimately saying. He was given an opportunity to throw some love and some hype their way, and no pun intended, he totally punted on it. Just kick that one out.
So it's just like, hey, you're going out on a date this weekend, right? Tell us about it. Like, yeah, we're going out. You're like, oh, okay. I'm not quite sure what that means.
It was a little like that. And if anybody saw it and thinks I'm overreacting, or if anybody saw it and thought it was, I apologize. My interpretation of his body language and his words was that he just was not going to hype those guys out. And it was really interesting. Anyway, anything else before we wrap things up? I mean, it's not
I'm going through
on Saturday night.
So I put something out on the chat, on Twitter, and I asked some people, just, for their biggest observations. So I'll read you a couple of them real quick, Catch. Our friend Kayla Mills said LHN needs help. One person said safeties and DBs are active. Quinn is smooth. Another Justin talked about Quinn. Prince W says so lots of offensive skills on the field this evening. Both quarterbacks made good plays. Ewers to Worthy for the TD is the future. One person said, Catch, interested, start the young guns at cornerback. More Brooks than Jameson was something that was in there. Quentin Hope Sr. says it's over. I'm still in commercial. I just want to go to school. A lot of LH and Walter Cronkite is a Longhorn legend. Oh my God!
Oh man!
And,
so they kept running that. See, Onward, that was a thing, man. It wasn't like they had a bunch of paid spots.
Mm-hmm.
They were running like internal promos.
In-house ads, yeah.
Like, show us that. Hey, let us watch the Walter Cronkite deal on a normal day when there's not actual football, live football at the stadium. It's just.
Chris Dow wins Chris Dow wins it for me. Chris Dow was saying Walter Cronkite is a Longhorn legend. He wins it of all my observations that I asked for. So I would say that's the funniest one for me. Catch, I think we covered the majority of it, Catch, from offense to defense to special teams. And I think where we started out for people who are late in the chat, also putting this whole thing into perspective of small percentage of plays. Don't overreact too much to what you see. Help is coming in the fall. I think overall, Catch, I think we definitely have covered just about everything from a spring game.
I meant to do this when we first started. When we were talking about the Kool-Aid, I just minutes ago posted a poll with predictions. So after the Texas spring game, give me your prediction. There are 4 options: 10-2 or better, 9-3, 8-4, or 7-5 or worse. We got like almost 100 votes. So in just a couple of minutes. So it's still early, but the percentages are fairly interesting. Okay.
This is your on Twitter, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you guys get on Catch's Twitter, it's JK
GK.
GK Catch. All right, so I haven't voted, so I don't know.
I don't want you to look.
Yeah, well, I can't look without voting.
I'm going to ask you. We're going to start. And now we have like almost 150 votes, or at least we're over 100. And it's only been a couple of minutes. I'm curious to see how many people voted this thing. 7-5 or worse. What do you think?
I think that's 10%.
19.5.
Okay.
8-4. Give me your guess.
All right, so if we're at if 20% of it's already gone,
correct.
So that already leaves us another 80% at 8-4.
Yes,
I will still say about 20% at most.
The numbers are changing, but at that moment, 36.8. So if we were playing Family Feud, the number one answer on the board was 8-4.
Okay.
So at that point, almost 57% is off the board. I'm at now with 43% of the vote remaining. How many do you think voted 10-2 or better?
I'm going to go crazy on this. I'm going to say maybe like 17%, because I think the majority is going to go
17.1%.
Boom, boom. Thank you. So that means the remaining 10-2 is what?
28%, 28.8%. But what's really interesting is essentially 10-2 or better is basically tied with 7-5 or worse. So nearly 60% of the vote is 9-3 or 8-4.
Mm-hmm.
The remaining 65% of the vote, actually 66% of the vote is in the middle there. 9-3, 8-4. And then the two others, and by the way, Michael Rockman, our producer, let us know Trey Wisner committed to the Longhorns. Breaking news here on the Orange White postgame show on the Orangebloods Texas Football YouTube channel. But yeah, so anyway, just to wrap up that point, and if you missed any of the show, we actually talked about Trey Wisner like 15 minutes ago. If you want to catch any of that, just rewind the video back. We talked a little bit about that possibility.
So 75 was what percentage, Catch?
It keeps, now we're almost up to 300 votes. So the numbers are changing in front of my very eyes. The last thing I saw was 16.4. So it was almost 20. And then as more votes have come in, that number has dropped slightly. Whereas 10-2 or better is almost a 1 percentage point higher at 17.2. So, everything else is in that middle.
So we're really at about 45% or so of people that think 9 or above is realistic. Because if you take a 9-3,
1 out of every 5 people, basically.
So that 9-3 and 10-2. So we're close to 50% of people that believe that 9 wins is the floor.
I don't know if you could say that, because I don't think someone that predicts 9-3 would say that 9-3 is the floor. They're just saying that's their prediction.
Sure, fair.
But almost 50% are saying they believe 9-3 or better.
Yeah.
And over 52% are saying 8-4 or worse. So there's two really, it's pretty drastic set of opinions. Because you have almost the exact same number of people that are saying 10-2, people are saying 7-5. And on the whole, it really is almost like a 50-50 split of 8-4 or worse, or 9-3 and better. So you have this fan base that's schizophrenic right now in terms of what it believes this team is going to do after tonight. Now, to your point, that 48% that thinks 9-3 or higher, it'll probably be 68 in 3 months.
Yes. 100%.
So maybe you're right. Maybe everybody's if it gets that high, we're definitely there's some burnt orange Kool-Aid being consumed, because I just have a hard time watching tonight. The quarterback play is not good enough yet. The quarterback play from tonight won't win 9 games. Just won't. It's not good enough. And that's behind a good offensive line. That the quarterbacks tonight behind a patchwork offensive line with some young kids, they're not winning 9 games. But it's a long time until August. It really is. And I leave open the possibility that I'll come around a little bit. Here's the thing. We just won't see it with our own eyes. So they'll get to August, and they're not going to let us see any more scrimmages. So we'll hear things from sources. But tonight was the last time we're going to see this team in the flesh in this type of situation before they go into their first game of the season. And, our eyeballs tell us what our eyeballs tell us. Look, whatever my opinion is, almost 48% of the people in this poll believe 9-3 or better. So they are a lot more optimistic than me. I think this team can be that good, but they're not there yet. That's a lot of confirmation bias speaking. If after night you're dead set with certainty that they're going to be there. I don't know that yet. Believe me, I'd love to carnival bark right now and tell you Ringling Brothers style that this team's got championship written all over it. My final thought is, and you can close this down, I just didn't see that tonight. That does not mean that we all need to scream fire in a crowded theater. People should sell their season tickets. It just means that this team is a work in progress. And I think we're a bit away from that type of optimism existing in reality. That's my final thought.
Yeah, I think, by the way, because I would have write about this in the morning, I'm definitely I may just have to sleep on it and wait and see these results in the morning, because you're at about 449. So I think by the morning time, you'll probably have well over 1,000 votes. I'll be really interested to see what that looks like. But, you definitely, no matter what, you still got about 65% of fans seeing at least a 3 to 4 win improvement, right? So we could definitely say there's still optimism that,
Hey, if I'm Sark, I've got my family and they're voting on 7 of, like, if you're Sark and you're like, wait a minute, the expectations are what?
Well, that's the thing.
They want me to win how many more games?
Win the 5 that you won, and then flip another, 3 to 4 catch, of the games that you did not win. So, that's still it's asking a hell of a lot. Look, it's the off season. This is the time to be optimistic. So, I'm not going to begrudge any Texas fan catch who is extremely happy about their team, extremely enjoying their team, extremely enthusiastic about their team. Self Solutions TV, actually, there's no negativity here. If you stay with me for a second, you're going to hear a lot of positivity. I say at this point, if you're a Texas fan and, the season will take care of itself. This is the time you enjoy the offseason catch. This is the time you dare to dream big. This is the time you start thinking about Quinn, Ewers, and what Bijan looks like in this offense, and maybe getting Oshon Mathis. And that's one of the things. Hell, if you want to talk about positivity of Self-Solution TVs, Ketch will tell you 2 overreaction Mondays ago, I said if this team somehow lands Oshon Mathis, I see them as a Big 12 contender. I catch, right? Remember that? I mean, you were, and so there are some bright spots. I think, which I feel like, catch, and this will be the last thing that I say. I feel like what's the percentage? Like, this is almost like a 40% new roster this year than it was last year. So I feel like there's a lot of pieces that are going to be put on the puzzle to be successful. By me saying successful, catch, I don't mean competing for a CFP. I'm just talking about the Big 12. I'm just talking about Oklahoma State, TCU's, Baylor's. Like, from a talent perspective, it's all going to be there in front of you. It's just about coaching at that point, because no one can look at the talent. You want to jump in and say something? Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say two things. By the way, I love that we've been doing enough. I was trying to hide it. I was about to jump in, and I was like, I'll just shut the hell up and whatever. To your point, that's why I ultimately didn't want to cut you off, because I just wanted to support your point. I think a year ago, the thing that we thought about this time a year ago, I think one of the things I remember myself saying is there's a good chance that the Longhorns in 2021 could be one of those teams in November and December that you don't want to play. Mm-hmm. Believe me, I'm not trying to stir the hornet's nest with Alabama, but Alabama catching Texas in game 2 is good for Alabama. That's a Texas team that shouldn't have it all figured out yet. I mean, that's in week 2, Texas should be trying to figure out who their quarterback is, really. But by 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, by the time you get to the second half of the season, really this should be a Texas team that's a better football team. And I think that's what happened a year ago that didn't happen, right? I mean, it got worse as the season went along, and its best football was played in September, and its worst football was played in October and November. I wonder if this year if Texas is going to be that team that finishes, say, 9-3. I think it's a team that what that tells me is in the second half of the season, Quinn Ewers got comfortable. Mm-hmm. Offensive line settles in. Playmakers are making plays. Defense is good enough. And that's not wild. That's not wild and crazy talk. That is, I think, a lot to expect of this team early. But boy, if it comes together, I think that's what it looks like. And I think you can see this Texas team getting a lot better. The only other thing I was going to say is a little bit of extra breaking news. Longhorns have picked up a second commitment tonight. Ryan Niblett from Aldine Eisenhower. That's interesting for a couple of different reasons. Typically, Houston Eisenhower, otherwise known as Aldine Ike, is traditionally a longtime A&M hotbed. Mm-hmm. So getting Ryan Niblett, who is a low 4-star national Rivals 250 guy, he's listed as an athlete. His offer list is really good. That includes an offer from Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. And traditionally, if Texas A&M offers a kid from Aldine Ike, that's been the Aldine area, and that Houston area has always been kind of an A&M. Weirdly, even in the best of times, Texas would own the Houston area, but they couldn't crack this one little area of Houston, which was kind of the Aldine area. Mm-hmm. And tonight they get a commitment from a kid from a school that, I got to be honest, I haven't paid 1,000,000% close attention to his commitment. I know he was recently at LSU, and there was some thought that maybe LSU was a team to keep an eye on with him. Again, because LSU traditionally done very well at Aldine Eisenhower. Texas getting a commitment tonight from a pure athlete, Rivals 250 member, their second Rivals 250 member of the night. Go over to orangebloods.com. We've got wall-to-wall coverage on Ryan Niblett's commitment, on the commitment from Trey Wisner. If you missed it, O'Shawn Mathis's mom was in the chat earlier, letting everybody know that what words did she use exactly, Anwar? Did you write it down? Like the visit's going wonderful? Or something like that?
Hold on. I took a screenshot. It's actually, I posted it on Orangebloods, Catch, while we were talking.
Well, I was teasing that, but I didn't. Good job, my man. You took the screenshot.
Yeah, I did it. So yes, it's it's on Orangebloods.
Roschon had a wonderful visit with an exclamation mark.
Yes, and Baron Sorrell's dad was also in here as well. So so we definitely had those are the parents who commented. We know there was definitely more that was in here.
Thanks, Mom. Appreciate it.
She's amazing.
O'Shawn Mathis's mom has an official invitation to a modcast of her choosing if and when O'Shawn ends up with the Longhorns. I'd love to pick her brain a little bit more on how this whole thing happened. And I'd like to know from Mama's standpoint how good it feels to have the thing that I talked about earlier, which is this chance to kind of come home and take a victory lap of like, we deserve to be here and at this school and in this program. It didn't happen back in 2017. It has a chance to happen now in 2022. And boy, won't the Texas defense be better for it if that happens. Anwar, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, you wrap us. You go first. Let me go ahead and let me handle something here.
Anwar looks like he's doing the Adam Schefter, Adrian Wojnarowski thing, where he's either typing or he's texting or something like that. Look, the bottom line is this: if you want more of us on the heels of the Texas spring game, Anwar's got a column out in about 12 hours. So he's really got to get off of this and then get on the midnight oil, or sometimes that 5 a.m. oil. He's He's a weird one when it comes to some of these late night Sunday pulpits. That's
You
tomorrow
never know.
morning. Exactly. I'll have my 10 thoughts from the weekend tomorrow afternoon. So literally wall-to-wall coverage continuing during the course of the next 24, 48, 72 hours, in addition to all of the recruiting that's literally taking place right now. And look, Texas goes for the sweep tomorrow against Baylor in baseball. 33 runs scored in the last, 18 innings in hardball against the Baylor Bears as the Texas baseball team kind of getting back on track. So lots of stuff over at orangebloods.com to check out. For myself and Anwar Richardson, you guys have a wonderful and blessed rest of this weekend. We'll see you on Monday for the Monday Overreaction Show.
Awesome.
Until then, here on the Orangebloods Texas Football YouTube channel, you guys be good to each other. Good night.